Good morning. Maybe you've heard about gangs, and maybe gangs like the Crips or the Bloods. Those were, I don't know if they still exist, but they were popular when I was coming up through high school and after that. And what happens with these gangs is they demand respect. They're very territorial. And when one gang disrespects the other gang, that unleashes revenge. We're going to get even. And they will. They'll seek to get even against the one that disrespected them, and then that group will seek to get even. And so it's just an onslaught of who can get revenge. It goes back and forth constantly until you have an out-and-out war. I think revenge is human nature. I think our nature is that when we're wronged, we want to get even. We want to settle the score. Anytime we are hurt, or especially our family, our kids, our fleshly nature automatically thinks about revenge. They shouldn't have said that to me. They shouldn't have responded that way. And we automatically think of how we can fix this situation, even the score. But what about Christians and revenge? What does God think about you and me seeking revenge? Turn your Bibles, if you will, to Romans 12, and we're going to spend some time there this morning. Romans chapter 12, Paul addresses this very thing. He says in Romans 12:17, the very first part of 17, he says, repay no evil for evil. And then in the very first part of verse 19, he says, beloved, never avenge yourselves. So the first thing we got to see this morning, the main point, Christians should never seek revenge. Repay no one evil for evil, never avenge yourselves. That equals no revenge. It's never okay to seek revenge. It's never okay to try to settle the score, no matter the circumstances. He's writing to Christians, and he's clear that revenge is never an option. And here's the problem. Revenge, when it becomes an option, then it becomes a temptation. And when it becomes a temptation, then it becomes a possibility. Because, see, you and I do things constantly that we're not supposed to do. We're tempted to say things we shouldn't say. We're tempted to do things and take part in things that we shouldn't. And oftentimes we fail and we fall prey to those things. So when revenge becomes an option, it becomes a temptation. And then it's very likely that I'm going to follow through with that. And Paul has been very clear when he says Christians should never seek revenge. Can never be an option, no matter the offense. Someone hurts you and you think, well, I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. I can move past that. But when someone hurts your family, or when someone hurts your kids, or your grandkids, we're getting more and more personal, aren't we? And see, when someone hurts our family, it's then that we begin to think, you know what? This revenge thing looks kind of good, and I think it's going to feel right. But revenge never equals the score. It never rights the wrong, and it never alleviates pain. See, we seek revenge because we think it would make us feel better. But it never does. When you're wronged, Satan says this. He wants you to feel that it's your right to get a revenge, because we're big about rights. I have a right to do this. This is my house. And he wants you, when you're hurt, when someone steps on you, he wants you to feel like it's your right to seek revenge. Because when we feel like we have a right, then boy, we're going to do it. We're going to get even. But revenge is never okay because it's ungodly. Christians are to be godly. Look in 1 Peter 1 for a second. 1 Peter chapter 1. Peter would say it this way. But as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. So never, no matter the circumstances, no matter the situation, no matter the offense, never is revenge holy. And always, always God's people are expected to conduct themselves in holiness and godliness. Do we do that well? Sometimes. Do we do it perfectly all the time? No. But we got to know where we stand. Just like last week, we were talking about our last hot topic last week. We got to know what we believe on these things and why. If we know that revenge for the Christian is ungodly, it's wrong, it's never okay to seek revenge, then it should never be an option, folks. It should never enter our mind. When you seek revenge, you hurt yourself, you hurt your influence, and you hurt your relationship with God. Because revenge is always an ungodly act. Let's move on. Secondly, look at Romans 12 in verse 19. He says, "Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." So secondly, Christians should leave revenge up to God. It takes a lot of faith, a lot of trust. Because when I'm wronged, I want to get even now. When someone says something hurtful to me, I want to come right back. I mean, that's our nature. And Paul's saying, vengeance belongs to God. God will repay. That's a quote from Deuteronomy 32. When it comes to revenge, Christians are to let God handle it. It requires a lot of faith, a lot of trust in God to not seek revenge and just let Him handle it. But see, we walk by faith. We live by faith. And so when it comes to an opportunity to seek revenge, our mindset is we've still got to be the same people that walk and live by faith and say, you know what, I'm going to let God handle that. The bigger person, the spiritually minded, focused Christian says, I'm going to let God handle that. The flesh says, no, I tell you, we're going to go to their house and we're going to. That's what the flesh says. But God says, you don't need to seek revenge. Let me handle it. Well, I don't know that God will handle it the way that I would. I can assure you that. He won't handle it the way you would. I'm sure of that. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. When someone hurts us, we want to pay them back immediately. But God doesn't work on our time and necessarily the way we want Him to. God said, I will repay, and maybe that means in this life, maybe that means in the next, maybe it means both. But see, again, it requires faith to say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this situation, I'm going to let God handle this. That takes a lot of faith and trust in Him to let Him take care of a situation, because He may not handle it today. He may not address it tomorrow. He may not address it till eternity. But He'll handle it. He will handle it. We don't have all the answers. God does. He's in control. But I do know this, that sometimes things seem right and just. We should handle it this way, but it's not always the case. In Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 12, it says there's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. What does that mean? Well, sometimes it seems like this is the only way. This is definitely right, and yet we go that route and it's not right at all. And see, God knows everything. We live life like we watch a movie, scene by scene by scene, not knowing what's going to happen in the next scene, much less at the end. He knows what He's doing. God shows no partiality. Romans chapter 2, verse 11. God will handle revenge. We have to trust God to handle it and not take revenge into our own hands. Let me share a few things with you. Look back over here with me in 2 Peter chapter 2. Leave room for God's wrath. 2 Peter 2, 4 and following. Listen to what he says. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but he cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until the judgment. If he did not spare the ancient world, but preserve Noah, a herald of righteousness with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. If turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to ashes, he condemned them to extinction, making them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly. God can handle revenge. I mean, Peter's giving you 3 examples there. God took care of the angels that didn't keep their domain. God handled the people at the flood, or with the flood, the ungodly, he handled them. And he took care of Sodom and Gomorrah. God can handle revenge. I think our struggle is with faith, having enough faith to say, you know what, I'm walking away and I'm going to let him handle this. However he chooses to handle this, I'm going to let him handle this. He's in control. I belong to him. But see, when our feathers get ruffled, or when we get offended because someone hurt our kid, we want to step out and we want to handle it right then. And that's not the godly approach. That's not how men and women of faith should handle it. Leave room for God's wrath. He has the ability to handle the ungodly. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 4. This one's not up there. This is fresh. It's new. 2 Timothy 4 in verse 14. Listen to what Paul says. Well, look at verse 13. He says, when you come, he's talking to Timothy, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, and above all the parchments. Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. The Lord will repay him according to his deeds. This is Apostle Paul. Paul had some abilities that you and I don't have. And he says, this guy did me a lot of harm. I don't know what that means necessarily. I don't know what he did to him, if he roughed him up a little bit when they came in. I don't know. But the message you take away from that is Paul didn't seek revenge. He says, God's going to handle it. And he moves on. He just makes a statement. But God will repay him. God will take care of him for that action. But that's got to be our mindset. That's got to be the way we live our lives. Christians should never seek revenge. Christians leave revenge up to God. Easy? No. Challenge? Absolutely. But nobody said, hey, this Christian life thing is easy. You just come out of the water and you're going to live it. It's a natural thing. No, so many things we live for is completely countercultural. It's not easy. Not easy at all. Let's move on. What's this, our third point? Finally, Romans 12:21 and following. He says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Back up to verse 17 with me for a minute. Let's read a little bit. He said, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I'll repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, listen, to the contrary, if your enemy's hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink, for by so doing you will heap burning coals on his head. And then the verse we just read a minute ago, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So finally, Christians should overcome evil with good. And that's the challenge, because we live in a very flesh-driven society, that if it feels good, you need to try it. If it's going to benefit you, then go for it. It doesn't matter who you step on, doesn't matter who you hurt. It's all about me, and that's the world we live in. And the idea of overcoming evil with good is completely contrary to that mindset. If you seek revenge, you are overcome by evil. Revenge is never godly. You can never say, well, I got even, but this is why I got even. I had a right. No. It's never okay. It's never the right thing to do. It's never godly. If you seek revenge, you are overcome by evil. Listen, let me put it to you like this. You have shown how weak you are if you seek revenge. You say, well, that doesn't mean I'm weak. It's exactly what it means. You don't have the ability to back off and trust your Father if you seek revenge. That's exactly what that is. Because He's given us an outline of what He would rather us do when we have the opportunity to seek revenge. Overcome evil. How can we overcome evil with good when we want to seek revenge? Paul says, listen, do what is honorable. Do what is honorable. Revenge is never honorable. Revenge is never okay. Honorable is doing the right thing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It may not feel right. It may not necessarily be what you want to do, but you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. The temptation is to go after that individual, either a verbal attack or a physical attack or whatever. But you know in your heart that's not the right thing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. It's what's honorable. Also, do your part to live at peace with everyone. And what happens in society, what happens in our world if everybody reads this passage and says, yes, today and tomorrow and every day going forward, I'm going to do the best I can to live at peace with everyone. It'd be an unrecognizable society. It'd be different. Jesus would say in Matthew 5 and 9, blessed are the peacemakers. Right? They'll be called sons of God. Peacemakers. What's a peacemaker? Somebody that lives at peace with those around them. Someone that makes peace. Someone that overcomes evil with good. You think it's easy to make peace today? You think it's easy to be a peacemaker? Because see, when you are going to be a peacemaker, you have to think as much, if not more, about the other person than you do yourself. When you're seeking revenge, it's all about you. When you're going to even the score, it's all about you. All you're thinking about is you. I don't care how this affects the other people. I don't care how everybody else looks at me when I do this. I don't care how this affects my kids going forward at school or whatever. I'm going to get even. It's all about me. But being a peacemaker, I'm thinking about you above me. Because I want to create an environment where you and I can get along even when we don't agree on everything. You mean that's possible? I hope so, because we're not going to agree on everything. I sure hope it's possible. If you're doing your part to live at peace and to be peaceable, and I'm doing my part to be a peacemaker, I think it's very possible to live at peace with others. Seeking revenge never promotes peace or that you belong to God. You ever have one of those moments where your kid does something and you're like, I can't believe my kid did that? If you're shaking your head, no, I've never had that moment. Well, it's coming, okay? I can't believe my kid would do that. How many of those moments does God have? I wrote it down for him. I can't believe my child would do that. It's written right there in Romans 12. Why would my child do that? But what about serving your enemy? Look here back in verse 20. So to the contrary. So instead of seeking revenge, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. This is hard. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. For by so doing, you'll heap burning coals on his head. And then he speaks of overcoming evil with good. But how many of you want to feed? You say, feeding the hungry, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem giving a drink to someone that's thirsty. I don't have a problem serving the needy. We do that. That's who we are. But what about when it's your enemy? What about when it's someone that's wronged your family? What about when it's someone that's hurt your children? You want to feed them? You want to serve that person? You see, that's where it's challenging. And we're going, boy, God's really put a lot on us. No more than what you've put on your children, maybe a little more, but on your children, you're saying, I expect you to toe the line. Not this kind of talk, yes sir, no ma'am, and respectful. All this kind of stuff we're teaching our kids from the time they can talk all the way up. And God has expectations for you and me. And one of them is don't seek revenge. I want you to overcome evil with good, and you want to overcome evil with good, you serve the one you want to seek revenge on. You know, here's the deal, and I've said this before, and this may be getting a little bit off track, but it's okay. When you're really angry with someone, and you're really struggling with this person, and I mean, you're not thinking good thoughts about this person, pray for them. I mean, really talk to God a while about them, for them. And your heart's going to change. I mean, take it a step farther. Can you imagine? I've really got hard feelings toward this lady, and she shows up and needs food. And I serve her. How can you serve someone and still have hard feelings? I think it works the heart over good, don't you? Serving your enemy instead of seeking revenge overcomes the evil with good. That's our responsibility. Some of the best sermons anyone ever hears or sees are the sermons that you preach by your lifestyle every day. And this is how we do it. We don't seek revenge. We just overcome evil with good. Our conduct, the way we live, is supposed to honor God every day. Being peacemakers, living peaceably with others. Seek to honor God. Let me share a few thoughts with you and we'll quit. When someone hurts you, every eye is on you. I want you to listen. We're almost through. When someone hurts you, every eye is on you. And they want to know how you're going to respond. They're not necessarily looking to give advice. They're looking to say, how is she going to respond? What's he going to say? Oh, I bet he's going to tear into them. They're looking, what are you going to do? The world and Satan would say, get even. Get even. Think about the example to your children. You say, well, my kids are grown. Think about the example to your grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren. Think about your example to the children in the church then. We're around children all the time. And they learn their behavior from us. One babysitter was getting on kids one day. They're little pre-K and elementary, or at kindergarten, elementary, on their young children. And she was getting on those kids because they were using foul language. They were cursing. And boy, she'd get all over them. It never did any good. They kept doing it. They kept doing it. Come find out, well, mom and daddy use that kind of language. Well, here's the thing. It's not going to do you any good to get onto that child when you're teaching that to them. You can't say to your child, I don't want you to use that kind of language, but I'm going to use it. I don't want you to seek revenge, but I'm going to get even with that person. That's called hypocrisy, is what that's called. You say, well, we're adults, we can speak the way we want. Okay, fine. You're setting the example and the tone for your child and the rest of their life. Think about the example you set for your kids. Be godly and don't seek revenge. Christians should never seek revenge. That can't be a part of our vocabulary. When I do premarital counseling, I normally have this questionnaire I have them fill out, and there's a question in there that talks about divorce. Is divorce a part of your vocabulary? And most of the time, well, all of the time typically, they always say no, because in premarital counseling it's not. And I hope it's always that way, okay? Because the message they're saying is we'll seek help if we get in trouble. We'll go to counseling if we get into trouble. We'll do something else. But divorce is not part of our vocabulary. And if it's not part of our vocabulary, guess what? It's not an option. And that's exactly where revenge ought to be with the Christian. It can't be a part of our vocabulary. It can't be an option. Some people are going to wrong you. People are going to offend you. They're going to hurt you. It's going to happen. People at the office, maybe even people, your brothers and sisters in church. That's not unheard of. You, as a child of God, don't have the right to seek revenge. My responsibility, your responsibility is overcome evil with good, and revenge is never good. Let God handle the revenge. And let's overcome evil with good. This morning, if you are subject to God's invitation, if we can help you in any way, a spiritual way, a physical way, maybe you need to be baptized to have your sins washed away, whatever your need might be, we would encourage you to come. Together we stand as we sing.